The massive crystal towers of Zenthara reached toward the twin suns like frozen lightning. For 3,000 years, these spires had watched over the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Inside the tallest tower, Overlord Vextar stood. Before a window that stretched from floor to ceiling, his reptilian eyes scanning the endless fleet of warships that orbited his world. Each ship represented absolute power. Each weapon could destroy entire planets. Each crew member knew that disobedience meant death. This was the Zephyrian hegemony, and it ruled everything. Vextar's reflection stared back at him from the polished glass. Scaled skin was dark green, marked with the ritual scars that showed his rank. 3 golden rings pierced his neck frills, each one representing 1,000 worlds under his control. He had worn those rings for over a century, and in all that time, no one had dared challenge Zephyrian rule. Behind him, the council chamber buzzed with quiet activity. Lesser officials scurried between workstations, processing reports from across the galaxy. Trade numbers, tribute collections, population counts, military deployments, the endless data that kept an empire running flowed through this room like blood through veins. Overlord, came a voice from across the chamber. Kethryn approached with measured steps, her own scales bearing the silver markings of the military caste. As Supreme Admiral of the Hegemony Fleet, she commanded more firepower than most species could imagine. The morning reports are ready for your review. Vextar turned from the window, his movements deliberate and controlled. Everything about Zephyrian culture emphasized order, hierarchy, and absolute obedience. It had served them well during their rise to power, and it would serve them for millennia to come. "Proceed," he said, settling into his command throne. The chair was carved from a single piece of black stone, taken from the homeworld of the first species they had conquered. It served as a reminder that resistance was futile. Kethryn activated her datapad. Holographic displays filled the air around them. Star maps showed the current positions of patrol fleets. Economic charts displayed tribute flows from subject worlds. Population statistics revealed the careful balance of different species across their territory. Sector 12 reports successful. Completion of the orbital mining platform around Rigel 7, Kethryn began. The human workforce exceeded production targets by 15% this quarter. Vextar nodded approvingly. Humans were useful creatures, intelligent enough to operate complex machinery, but lacking the physical strength or advanced technology to pose any threat. Their homeworld had been absorbed into the Empire so long ago that most had forgotten it ever existed as an independent planet. "What of the archaeological expedition to the Outer Rim?" Vextar asked. Dr. Zixalan's team has completed their survey of the derelict sites in Sector 77. They found evidence of primitive settlements, but nothing of strategic value. The ruins appear to be several thousand years old, probably another species that destroyed itself before we could properly integrate them into the Empire. The galaxy was full of such ruins, civilizations that had reached for the stars only to collapse under their own limitations. It proved what the Zephyrians had always known, only they possessed the strength and wisdom to rule effectively. A soft chime interrupted their discussion. Admiral Rixton appeared as a hologram, his image transmitted from the Frontier Fleet. Patrolling the galaxy's edge, his expression carried a note of curiosity that immediately caught Vextar's attention. "Overlords," the Admiral began, "long-range sensors have detected unusual debris fields near the galactic rim. The objects don't match any known ship designs in our databases." Vextar leaned forward slightly. In 3,000 years of expansion, they had encountered hundreds of different species and absorbed their technologies. Unknown meant either a previously undiscovered civilization or possibly salvageable advanced technology. "Energy signatures?" Kethryn asked. "Minimal. Whatever these objects are, they've been drifting in space for a very long time. Initial scans suggest they might be escape pods or emergency vessels of some kind." "Dispatch a full survey fleet," Vextar ordered. "Scientific teams, military escort, and archaeological specialists. I want complete analysis of anything found." "Understood." "Overlord, Survey Fleet 7 will depart within the hour." As the transmission ended, Vextar returned his attention to the regular reports. Food production was up across the agricultural worlds.
The mining colonies were exceeding their quotas.
Military recruitment numbers remained steady. Everything functioned exactly as it should in a well-ordered empire. But something about those debris fields nagged at his thoughts. In his long experience, the galaxy rarely produced true surprises. Most mysteries had mundane explanations, and most threats could be crushed through superior firepower. Still, the hegemony had not survived for 3 millennia by ignoring potential problems. They would investigate these unknown objects thoroughly, catalog whatever technology might be salvageable, and file the appropriate reports. The twin suns began to set beyond the crystal spires, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Across the galaxy, trillions of beings went about their daily lives under Zephyrian rule. Most had never known any other way of life. Many couldn't even imagine what freedom might look like. Tomorrow would bring new reports, new worlds to govern, new species to integrate into their vast empire. The hegemony would continue its eternal watch over the galaxy, it's maintaining order through strength and ensuring that civilization continued to function under proper guidance. None of them could have guessed that those mysterious debris fields contained the remnants of humanity's great Exodus ships that carried survivors away from their dying homeworld 3,000 years ago. When the expanding Zephyrian Empire had seemed like an unstoppable force of nature, Captain J stared at the screen in disbelief. 3 weeks of careful investigation had turned what should have been a routine salvage mission into something that made his head hurt. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers, filled with metal fragments that didn't belong to any known civilization. Run the analysis again, he told Lieutenant Hannah at the communication station. Her fingers danced across the control panel, but the results remained the same. The strange signals they had been detecting were getting stronger, and the language patterns were unlike anything in their databases. Dr. Min emerged from the elevator carrying an armload of data tablets. As the expedition's chief scientist, she had spent every waking hour studying the artifacts they had recovered. Her usually neat appearance was disheveled, and dark circles under her eyes showed how little sleep she had been getting. "Captain, you need to see this immediately," she said, activating the main display screen. Images of hull fragments appeared, each one covered with strange markings and symbols. These aren't random pieces of space junk. They're parts of escape pods. The bridge crew gathered around as Dr. Min highlighted different sections of the debris. The metal was unlike anything in their technology databases, but something about the design felt almost familiar. "Look at these dimensions," she continued, pointing to what appeared to be doorway frames and corridor sections. "Everything is sized for beings about our height and build. The control interfaces, the seating arrangements, even the spacing of handholds, they're all designed for humanoid beings." Lieutenant Hannah frowned at her sensor readings. "Doctor, if this is from an unknown species, why does it feel so familiar?" Dr. Min smiled grimly and pulled up another set of data. "'Cause it's not unknown. I've been digging through our historical archives, going back to the early days of the expansion. Look at this." Ancient Zephyrian records filled the screen there, text scrolling past in the old script. Most of the crew couldn't read the archaic symbols, but Dr. Min had spent years studying historical documents. During the 3rd millennium of conquest, there are scattered reports of a species called humans, from a world they designated as Earth. The records are fragmentary because most were considered unimportant at the time. Captain J leaned closer to the screen. "What happened to them?" "According to these documents, their world was scheduled for integration into the Empire. But when the survey fleets finally reached their system, they found it empty. The planet showed signs of recent industrial activity, but no population remained. The official report concluded that they had either destroyed themselves in warfare or died from some natural disaster. The implications hung in the air like smoke. If humans had actually escaped their world before the Zephyrians arrived, where had they gone? And why were their escape pods scattered at the edge of known space? "There's more," Dr. Min continued. She activated another display showing the debris field from multiple angles. "These aren't just random fragments. They're arranged in a pattern that suggests a planned exodus. Hundreds of escape pods, all following the same trajectory away from the galactic core." Engineer Park looked up from his analysis station. "Doctor, I've been studying the propulsion systems in these fragments. The technology is completely different from anything we use, but it's designed for long-duration flight. These pods could have sustained life support for decades, maybe longer. A chill ran down Captain Jay's spine. You're saying they fled the galaxy entirely. It looks that way. The trajectory leads directly toward the void between galaxies. If they had enough resources and the right technology, they could have survived the journey. Lieutenant Hannah suddenly straightened at her station. Captain, I'm detecting another signal burst, much stronger than before. It's coming from the direction the escape pods were heading. The bridge fell silent as the alien transmission filled their speakers. The language was completely unknown, but there was something about its rhythm and structure that seemed almost familiar. The universal translator struggled with the signal, producing only fragments of meaning. ... return to ... long exile ... what was taken ... remember ... The transmission faded, leaving them in stunned silence. Captain Jay felt his scales flush with the adrenaline response his species had evolved for moments of extreme danger. Could that signal be from the descendants of these humans? He asked. Dr. Min was already running calculations on her tablet. If they did escape to the void between galaxies, they would have had 3,000 years to develop their technology and grow their population. Civilization with that much time and motivation could accomplish incredible things. Signals now? Engineer Park wondered aloud. After all this time, why reveal themselves? The answer came from Lieutenant Hannah, who was monitoring long-range sensors. Captain, I'm detecting multiple energy signatures at the galactic rim. They're moving toward our position, but they're still too far away for detailed scans. Captain? Jay made his decision quickly. Prepare a full report for Fleet Command. Include everything we've discovered about the debris field, the historical records, and these new signals. If humans really did survive their exile and they're coming back, the hegemony needs to know immediately, as the crew work to compile their findings. None of them noticed the small probe that had been silently observing their ship. It recorded their conversations, analyzed their technology, and transmitted its findings across the vast emptiness of space to a fleet that had been waiting 3,000 years for this moment. The humans were indeed coming home, and they had learned much during their long exile in the darkness between stars. The alarm bells on Border Station Eternal Vigilance had been screaming for exactly 4 minutes when Commander Sung received the message that would change everything. He stood in the command center, watching his crew scramble to their positions as red warning lights bathed the metal walls in bloody color. Report, he barked at Ensign Kai, who was hunched over the long-range sensor controls. Sir, we have multiple contacts approaching from deep space, Kai replied, his voice tight with confusion. I count over 300 vessels in perfect formation, but their design patterns don't match anything in our identification systems. Commander Sung moved to the tactical display, where a three-dimensional map of local space showed the approaching fleet. The ships were sleek and curved, almost like they had grown rather than been built. They moved with a precision that spoke of advanced coordination technology. Size estimates? He asked, though something in his gut already told him the answer. Would be bad news. Ranging from cruiser class to... Sir, their largest vessels are showing up bigger than our heaviest dreadnoughts. But the power readings are completely wrong. I can't get a proper lock on their energy source. Dr. Na, the station's alien biology expert, looked up from a research terminal with wide eyes. Commander, those energy patterns don't follow any known physics principles. It's like they're operating on completely different scientific laws. Before Commander Sung could respond, the communications board erupted with an incoming transmission. The universal translator worked for several seconds before producing clear, strangely accented standard galactic ascension Zephyrian forces. This is Admiral Yoon of the Earth Recovery Fleet. We have returned to reclaim what was stolen from us 3,000 years ago. We will remove your forces from all systems within the former human territorial boundary. You have 1 hour to comply. Complete. Silence fell over the command center. Commander Sung felt his heart hammering against his ribs as the impossible words sank in. Humans were supposed to be extinct. They were mythology, ancient stories told by conquered peoples about their lost homeworlds. That's impossible, whispered Dr. Na. Humans died out millennia ago. Every xenobiologist in the Empire knows that. The tactical display updated as the unknown fleet moved closer, and what it showed defied all understanding. The human ships were flickering in and out of normal space, phasing between dimensions like ghosts. Energy readings spiked and vanished in patterns that made no sense according to established science. "Raise all defensive shields," Commander Sung ordered, his training taking over despite his shock. "Charge weapon systems to full power. Send immediate alert to Fleet Command with our situation." The response came swiftly, but not in words. Of the smaller human vessels, no bigger than a patrol frigate, separated from the main formation and approached their massive border station. It moved with casual confidence, as if their defensive weapons were nothing more than toys. "Sir, there. Powering up some kind of weapon system," reported Ensign Kai. "But the energy signature is completely unknown. I've never seen readings like this." Commander Sung watched the small human ship approach their fortress-like station. Eternal Vigilance was one of the most powerful defensive platforms in the Empire, armed with quantum disruptors that could vaporize entire fleets. Its shields could withstand direct hits from capital ship weapons. It was supposed to be unbreachable. The human ship fired once. The blast passed through their shields like they weren't even there. It struck the main power reactor with surgical precision, shutting down the entire defense grid without killing a single crew member. Every weapon went offline. Every shield generator died. Even the lights dimmed to emergency power. It was a demonstration of technological superiority, so complete that 3,000 years of Zephyrian advancement became meaningless in a single moment. Admiral Yoon's voice filled the command center. Again, calm and completely without emotion. "We learned patience during our time in the dark between galaxies. We learned to build better tools. We learned to forgive old injuries, but we did not learn to forget them." Commander Sung stared at the tactical display, where the human fleet continued its steady approach. Each ship seemed to flicker between reality and something else, operating by rules that his people didn't understand. "Admiral," he said, activating the communications system, "I don't understand. Our records show that humans went extinct during the early expansion period." "Your records show what your ancestors wanted them to show," came the reply. "When your fleets came to claim our worlds, some of us chose to flee rather than submit. We took our ships and our children and went into the void between stars. We have been watching, we have been waiting, we have been preparing." A small human. The vessel that had disabled their station moved closer, and Commander Sung could see details through the viewport. The ship's hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "What do you want?" he asked. "Justice. Freedom for the species you have enslaved. An end to 3,000 years of tyranny." Admiral Yoon's voice carried the weight of generations. "Your empire built its power on the bones of conquered worlds. That ends now, more human." Ships were arriving every minute, materializing out of deep space like nightmares made real. They brought technologies that defied understanding, weapons that could bypass every defense the hegemony had built. The age of unchallenged rule was ending, and humanity had come home to collect their debt. Captain Lee stood on the observation deck of the human warship New Seoul, watching repair crews work on the damaged space station below. 6 months had passed since the humans announced their return. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone could have imagined. The station had been a Zephyrian prison facility just 3 days ago. Now former slaves worked alongside human engineers to convert it into a medical center. Ships from a dozen different species moved through the area, carrying supplies and refugees to safety. "Status report," Captain Lee said as Commander Park approached with a data tablet full of updates from across their territory. "The Rigel sector is completely under our control," Park reported. "The local resistance groups successfully overthrew their Zephyrian governors with our technical support. We've also received word that the mining colonies in the Vega system have declared independence." Through the large windows, Lee could see the sleek forms of human warships patrolling, alongside vessels from species that had just tasted freedom for the first time in centuries. The sight filled him with mixed emotions, pride in what humanity had accomplished during their exile, but sadness for all the suffering that could have been prevented. "What about Zephyrian response?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer would be grim. Park's expression darkened. They're getting more desperate as they lose territory. Intelligence reports show they've started using biological weapons. In systems they can't hold, the attack on New Carthage killed 12 million civilians before our medical ships could deliver the cure. The war was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zephyrians had ruled unchallenged for 3,000 years, but now they faced an enemy that fought by completely different rules. Human ships could phase through their best defensive shields. Human weapons bypassed technologies that had protected the Empire for millennia. Human medical science could counter even their most advanced biological attacks. But it wasn't just superior technology that was winning the war. The humans had spent centuries in exile planning their return, and their strategy was more sophisticated than simple conquest. They didn't want to replace the Zephyrian Empire with their own tyranny. Instead, they offered something the galaxy had never known: genuine cooperation between equals. "Sir," called Lieutenant Jin from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Yoon." The holographic image of the fleet commander appeared on the bridge. Even across the vast distances of space, her expression carried the weight of terrible news. "All ship commanders, we've confirmed our worst fears about the Zephyrian superweapon. Intelligence sources have provided detailed information about something they call the Galaxy's End. It's a device capable of triggering chain reactions that will destroy entire star systems." Captain Lee felt ice form in his stomach. A weapon that could destroy multiple solar systems was beyond anything they had prepared for. "How does it work?" Commander Park asked. "It creates artificial black holes that feed on stellar matter. Once activated, it would spread from system to system until most of the galaxy was consumed. Our analysts believe it could kill trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds." The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed this information. They had known the Zephyrians were capable of great cruelty, but this level of destruction was almost impossible to comprehend. "Admiral, what are our orders?" Captain Lee asked. "We move on their capital world immediately. All available forces, maximum speed. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to activate the weapon rather than face complete defeat. They would rather destroy the galaxy than lose control of it."
Outs.
Lieutenant Jin looked up from her station with fresh reports. "Captain, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout Zephyrian space. Looks like they're pulling back all their forces to defend their homeworld. They're making their final stand," Commander Park observed. "Everything they have left will be concentrated around their capital system." Admiral Yoon's image nodded grimly. "This will be the largest space battle in galactic history. We'll be facing not just the remaining Zephyrian fleet, but also their most advanced defensive platforms and orbital weapons. However, we won't be fighting alone." The tactical display updated to show ship movements across dozens of star systems. Fleets from newly liberated worlds were converging on the same destination. Species that had been enemies for generations were working together. For the first time in millennia. "The Altarians are contributing their entire deep space fleet," Admiral Yoon continued. "The Regelians have provided their best battle cruisers. Even some of the smaller species are sending what ships they can. This will be a truly galactic effort." Captain Lee watched the display showing thousands of ships from across known space moving toward their final confrontation. Humanity had returned to the stars not as conquerors, but as liberators. They had given hope to species that had forgotten what freedom looked like. "One more thing," Admiral Yoon added. "Our scientists have been studying the Galaxy's End weapon. If we can capture it instead of just destroying it, they believe we might be able to reverse its effects. Instead of creating destruction, we could use it to repair some of the damage the Empire has caused over the centuries." The idea was almost too incredible to believe. A weapon of ultimate destruction transformed into a tool of healing and restoration. It would be fitting justice for 3,000 years of oppression. "All ships, prepare for jump to hyperspace," Admiral Yoon commanded. "We're going home to finish what our ancestors started." Space above Zenthara looked like a storm of metal and light. Admiral Yoon stood in the command center of the massive vessel Earth's Return. surrounded by holographic displays showing the positions of thousands of ships. Never before had so many different species fought together for a single cause. Final battle positions confirmed, reported Captain Kim from the tactical station. All human vessels ready for combat. Allied fleets from 47 liberated species have joined the formation. Total ship count is 8,400 vessels. Commander O looked up from the intelligence station, her face pale with worry. Zephyrian forces are concentrated around their orbital defense platforms. But our main concern is still the galaxy's end weapon. Long-range sensors confirm its charging for full activation. Through the main viewport, Xanthara hung in space like a giant jewel. Its crystal cities sparkled with beautiful light, but Admiral Yoon knew that beneath that beauty lay 3,000 years of cruelty and oppression. This world had ruled the galaxy through fear and violence, and now it faced its final judgment. The enemy transmission came suddenly, broadcast on all frequencies. Overlord Vextar's scaled face appeared on every screen, twisted with desperate rage and hatred. You may have won battles across the galaxy, humans, but you will not enjoy your victory. Rather than see the galaxy ruled by inferior species, we will cleanse it completely. The galaxy's end will ensure that if we cannot rule over all life, then no life will remain. Admiral Yoon stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had led her people through 1,000 generations of exile in the cold darkness between stars. You still don't understand what we learned out there, do you? We didn't return to become new masters. We came back to teach what the void taught us, that the universe is vast enough for all species to grow and thrive together. The final battle began with a flash of light that could be seen from orbit. Human ships phased through the massive orbital defense platforms while their allies engaged the conventional Zephyrian fleet. Weapons that could destroy planets exchanged fire with technologies that bent the laws of physics. But the real victory came when the human science teams, working with knowledge gained during their long exile, reached the galaxy's end weapon. Instead of simply destroying the device, they began the most ambitious project in galactic history. They transformed it. Dr. Cho worked frantically at the weapons control systems while explosions rocked the space around them. Her team had spent months studying the device's plans, looking for a way to reverse its destructive purpose. The quantum field generators are responding, she reported over the communication link.
We're
redirecting the energy flow through the harmonic resonance chambers. How much time do we need? Admiral Yoon asked as human ships fought desperately to protect the science team. 60 seconds for the transformation to complete. But the Zephorians are trying to activate it manually. If they succeed before we finish, ... the countdown felt like hours. All around them, the greatest space battle in galactic history raged as thousands of ships fought for the future of all life. But everything depended on the small team of scientists working inside the weapon that could destroy everything. Transformation complete, Dr. Cho announced. Activating the new sequence now. Dead of the destructive pulse that would have consumed. Star Systems, the modified weapon, released something unprecedented. A wave of healing energy that spread across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Worlds that had been strip-mined for centuries began to show signs of regeneration. Poisoned atmospheres started to clear. Species that had been driven to the edge of extinction felt new hope for survival. The Zephyrian fleet, seeing their ultimate weapon turned against everything they believed in, began to surrender. Ship after ship dropped their shields and powered down their weapons. The 3,000-year reign of the hegemony was finally over. In the aftermath, as surrender documents were signed and plans were made for war crimes trials. Admiral Yoon found herself once again standing before a great viewport. But now she looked out at something that had never existed before in galactic history. Ships from hundreds of different species working together as equals. Admiral Captain Kim approached with the latest reports. The Galactic Council has been officially established. Every species will have an equal voice in how we govern ourselves going forward. Yoon nodded, thinking of all the generations who had lived and died in the dark between galaxies, dreaming of this moment. What about the Zephyrians who refuse to accept the new order? Those who want to participate in building a better galaxy will be welcomed with open arms. Those who cannot accept equality with other species will be allowed to settle on reservation worlds, where they can maintain their traditional ways without harming others. The healing wave from the transformed weapon continued to spread, undoing millennia of environmental damage and giving new life to worlds that had been written off as dead. It was more than victory, it was rebirth for the entire galaxy. As Admiral Yoon watched ships from Earth working alongside vessels from dozens of other worlds, she knew that humanity's long exile had not been in vain. They had returned not as conquerors seeking revenge, but as teachers offering a better way forward. The age of unchallenged rule was over. The age of cooperation among the stars had begun.